Conditionals and if clauses in Hebrew show possibilities and hypothetical situations. They are expressed with the word im, meaning if, and this word is used in all conditional sentences, especially in spoken Hebrew. While there are synonyms in literary or biblical Hebrew, I will not be covering them because they're obsolete in modern Hebrew, so the word im is the most important to know. Modern Hebrew uses conditionals in similar ways to English, like if, then. But in Hebrew, they're classified into 3 types, and I will explain each one. Conditional type 1 shows real and possible conditions, which are mainly expressed in the future. The structure of type 1 is im plus a future tense, then the future tense. I already explained how to form the future tense in the previous video, and I recommend watching it before continuing with this lesson. In such a condition, it's worth noting that English uses the present and the future, like saying, if you come, you will go, with a comma. But in Hebrew, it's the future with the future. Also, when using any conditional in speech, Hebrew has the word as, meaning then. While English can use then to indicate the consequence of an if clause, it's often implied and can be omitted without changing the meaning, like saying, if you come, then you will go. In Hebrew, the same idea also applies. The word as means then, but it's optional and is usually used for emphasis. Throughout examples, I will not use it, but it's a word that is important to know. Anyhow, when using conditional type 1, we express real possibilities, and both clauses will be in the future tense in Hebrew, like saying, im hu yavo machar אנחנו נלך לסרט. אם הוא יבוא מחר, אנחנו נלך לסרט. If he comes tomorrow, we will go to the movie. That's how conditional type 1 works in Hebrew. Conditional type 2 talks about unlikely and hypothetical situations, and the structure is im plus the past tense and then the past tense. In this case, the meaning will be hypothetical because the past tense is used for the hypothetical present or future, which seems counterintuitive, but that's how the concept works in Hebrew. However, this is where we have to apply the verb to be. And in case you don't remember, this verb does not have a present form in Hebrew, but it can be used in the past for conditional states. The infinitive of to be is lehiyot, and the Hebrew verb can express was and were in the past. In conditionals type 2 and 3, we use past conjugations of lehiyot to say things like, if I were rich, if you had been there, etc. Such phrases are often translated with auxiliary verbs, would have been, in English, which Hebrew grammatically doesn't have, but the meaning is still there. Briefly, we can look at the conjugations of lehiyot in the past to see how they will be used in conditional states. Ani hayiti. Ata hayita. At hayit. Hu haya. He hayta. Anachnu hayinu. Atem hayitem. Aten hayiten. Hemhen hayu. The pronouns ani, anachnu, and hemhen are the only ones with no gender. So this is how lehiyot, to be, is conjugated in the past. Now, we can use it for conditional statements. In conditional type 2, we use the past forms of lehiyot to express conditions that are not true, like saying, im ani hayiti ashir, ani hayiti kone bait. Im ani hayiti ashir, ani hayiti kone bite. If I were rich, masculine, I would buy a house. That's how conditional type 2 works in Hebrew. Conditional type 3 expresses unreal conditions in the past, mainly showing regret or impossible situations. This conditional is similar to type 2 because it shows counterfactual information, and the structure is im plus the past tense plus a verb, then the past tense plus a verb. Usually in this pattern, the past tense will use past conjugations of lehiyot, to be, and the verb will be an infinitive or participle that would express the perfect past, like saying, Im anachnu hayinu magi'im bezman anachnu hayinu ro'im oto. Im anachnu hayinu magi'im bezman anachnu hayinu ro'im oto. If we had arrived on time, masculine, we would have seen him. Hayinu ro'im, we would have seen, is the past auxiliary phrase with a present participle. In English, the structure is replaced with would have plus a past participle. This is how conditional type 3 works in Hebrew, but at this point, things are getting a bit too complicated, because such phrases are not said that often in speech. When learning the Hebrew conditionals and how to use them in context, try to use type 1 and 2, because they're the most used in spoken Hebrew. As a pro tip, if you were to use type 3, lehiyot, to be, would work just like saying would have in English, like hayiti ose, hayiti ose, hayta omeret, hayta omeret, hayu ma'aminim, hayu ma'aminim. So, lehiyot is highly essential for conditionals type 2 and 3, and they're used for simple past meaning like was and hypothetical auxiliaries like would have. Don't forget that conjugations will change based on person, gender, and number, and that every expression can help show ideas that in English need auxiliary verbs like were, had, would have, etc. Because conditionals are such a complex topic, it's necessary to understand their nuances when listening to spoken Hebrew. While this lesson is useful to know, the best way to comprehend conditionals is in spoken Hebrew, where speakers may simplify structures. Also, the changes in the tenses can be tricky, because Hebrew doesn't always use auxiliary verbs like English, at least not in the same way. Overall, this is how conditionals and if clauses work in Hebrew.